Hey, loves, welcome to the Psychic Sages, your podcast for all things psychic development, spirituality, and Reiki. My name is Megan, and I am joined by my lovely, wonderful co host, Linda.
Hi.
And today we're very excited to take our first deep dive into Reiki. So, welcome back. We are really looking forward to getting into one of our most favorite areas of spirituality, the world of Reiki. And today, as an introduction, we just want to share a history of Reiki. We want to talk about how Reiki works, what it's like to receive Reiki, the infinite applications of Reiki, and how Linda came to learn Reiki, how I came to learn Reiki. And at the end, we'll get into what it's like to learn Reiki in our own lineage. So it's important to say that our lineage originates with Mikao Usui.
Let's start at the beginning. What even is Reiki? At its core, Reiki is a type of energy healing where the practitioner channels Reiki energy through their bodies into the body of the client. There are many different origins of Reiki and many different ways that Reiki is understood. The part that Megan and I are from is called Usui Reiki, which goes back to a Japanese Reiki teacher, Mikao Usui. So anything that I am going to share as we move forward is going to be connected to that particular Reiki lineage and knowledge. Let's talk about Reiki a bit more, because when we're looking at the word Reiki as we know it from Usui Reiki, the meaning of the word is described in the name. You need to remember that Reiki is a Japanese word, and the Japanese language consists of different kanji, which are written and often looking like little images. And Reiki consists of two different kanji, so two different words, two different images, Rei and Ki. And the word Rei is a meaning or has the meaning of channeling the universal energy, the life force energy, source energy, and channeling it down from the universe down to the earth to replenish. And this is Ki. Ki is the word for life force energy, prana, chi, however you may know this. So the practice of Reiki is the practice of channeling this universal consciousness, love, source energy to restore and replenish the life force energy of a human, of an animal, of an object, of anything that exists. Now that we're talking about this, let's hop back to the origins, because Usui Reiki, as we know it, has been in practice for a little more than 100 years. Megan will go a bit deeper into the history in a moment, but Reiki has been known beforehand. And there are several different traditions in different countries around the world that have practices like Reiki, where it's an energy healing practice that involves channeling energy through the body and flowing out of the palms of the hands. The hands-off healing or hands-on healing are usually connected to some specific type of energy healing, which again we call Reiki. But that's important for you to know that it's not the only way or not the only practice. So, Megan, do you maybe want to talk a little bit about Mikao Usui and the specific type of healing?
Yeah. So I'll share a little bit about who Mikao was. He was from Gifu, Japan. He was born in 1865. I think this is so interesting. He chose areas of study focusing on psychology, religion, and divination. And at the time in Japan, all those areas of study and divination, that's very cool to me that it was a an area of study that people chose and dedicated themselves to in Japan. And so we can see early in Mikao's life that he walked a path of spirituality and was very interested in it. Before beginning his work career in Japan, he traveled and studied abroad in China and Europe. And when he returned to Japan, he actually joined a local metaphysical group and developed his psychic skills there. Again, I think this is so cool.
Yep.
And in terms of his work life, he did lots of different things. He worked as a civil servant in many different roles, so for the government and for the city of Tokyo. He also worked for various businesses, and he was a journalist. So he had a breadth of knowledge through the work that he did. But at a point in his adult life, he made a commitment to attaining enlightenment. And in Japanese, the enlightenment that he was interested in attaining is called Anshin Ritsume. The principle behind this is that you achieve a state of self maintaining constant peace. So, no matter what is going on around you, your environment never disrupts your constant state of peace. And this was his goal. So, he found a Zen teacher who could guide him and assist him with Zazen meditation. And that was his choice of avenue to attaining enlightenment. And he did this for 3 years. He followed, the practice of Zazen meditation according to his teacher. And for 3 years, nothing. So he goes to his teacher and he's like, I really want to do this. What's the next step? And his teacher says, okay, you're taking it up a notch. And what you're going to do is you are going to prepare yourself for death. And you will confront death and say, I'm ready to die for enlightenment. And Mikao Usui is like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so the way that he decides to do this is to go to a mountain in Japan. It's just north of Kyoto, Japan. And it's called Mount Kurama. And he walks to the top of the mountain. It was a place, and I think still is today, a place where many people go to meditate. And he dedicates himself to fasting and meditation for as many days as is required until he dies and achieves enlightenment. So that's why he walks up to the top of this mountain. He's ready to die on this mountain. On the 21st day of his fast and meditation, apparently at midnight, it's written in history records, so this is cool. At midnight on the 21st day, consecutive day of fasting and meditation, he suddenly is struck by light, universal light. And he said that it felt like he was being struck by lightning. And it was so powerful and intense that it rendered him completely unconscious. So, according to records, this occurred at midnight. And then at sunrise, he regained consciousness and he realized he felt absolutely no pain or suffering, no physical discomfort whatsoever. And I think anyone who's fasted even a couple of days knows that 21 days of consecutive fasting is going to leave the body experiencing a lot of discomfort. So he is struck by lightning. He comes to and he's like, oh my gosh, I feel absolutely no physical pain, no discomfort whatsoever. And he's elated. He's like, oh my gosh, I did this. I've achieved this. And he's running down the mountain to go inform his teacher. He's running down the mountain and they say he stubs his toe on a rock. If you're running down a mountain and you stub your toe on a rock, you've really injured yourself. So he falls. And I'm sure it's extremely painful. I've done things like this before. He takes his hands immediately to cover his toe. First thing we often do is put our attention on the area of our body that's been injured. And instantaneously, as he takes his hands and puts it over his stub toe, which is in severe pain, he notices it is healed. So he could feel coming from his hands into his toe energy that instantaneously healed his toe. And he realized at that moment that he had received a gift of healing. And he, at that point, dedicated the remainder of his life to healing others with this gift. And, Linda and I come into the story. He dedicated his life to teaching others how to channel this energy. And um, he just had beautiful wisdom that he imparted with his teachers. It's carried through the lineage that Linda and I practice. As Linda mentioned, at the time that Mikao Usui received this gift, there were other forms of Reiki being practiced in Japan. So this is not unique or special to Mikao Usui himself. He was one of apparently 5 other people who had lineages of Reiki that they were followed. But it's interesting because in Japan at the time that Mikao Usui received this gift, all the other lineages were kept very private and secret, and they were passed down through their families. So, what's beautiful about what Mikao Usui did is he shared this gift with the world. He felt called to do that, and so he dedicated himself to that. The last thing I'll say is that today, this is the most prolific form of Reiki practiced and Reiki known. So, um, very often people use the word Reiki in general, and like many, many, many people who talk about Reiki are referring to Usui Reiki, and that originates with Mikao Usui. Linda, do you want to jump into how Reiki works?
In 1 second, I wanted to add that if you are someone who's interested in either learning Reiki or just wanting to receive a Reiki treatment from a practitioner, there are also, after Mikao Usui started teaching people, of course, people branched off into and created new versions of Reiki. And if you're looking for a practitioner or a specific line to learn from, it's always good to have a look at which specific lineage they are a part of. And if you don't find it on their website, you can also just send them an email and ask, hey, which kind of style of Reiki are you practicing? Because like, while there are common effects, some of these will feel differently and you might experience and can target different areas. So it might be good to have a look at that to gain an understanding. So I'm going to talk about how does Reiki work, and again, sharing from Usui Reiki, and that's our knowledge base. And like I mentioned in the intro of what is Reiki, it is the practice of channeling universal love energy, universal source consciousness energy through the body of the practitioner. So you can think of it like it's entering, and when you're learning that and you're channeling Reiki, you can start to feel that it's channeled through the crown chakra, third eye, through the throat, into the heart, out of the through the shoulders and down the arms and out of the palms of the hands. Some Reiki practitioners feel like practicing with hands off because there is a very sensitive, or like you get feedback through the palms of your hands, I should say, as a practitioner when you're moving the hands over the person or over the animal, the object, whatever it may be. And some prefer hands on and some do a mix. It is like we are channeling this Reiki energy. So, to give you a bit of a visual, it's like we are the faucet and Reiki is running through the faucet, and Reiki would be the water. So, there are rituals in place that you learn to turn on the flow of Reiki, like you're opening the tap and then the Reiki runs through you, and when you're done, there's a ritual to close the tap again, and you're done, and it's no longer flowing. There are 2 different kinds of Reiki treatments. One is in person and one is remote. So in person would be like you would go to a massage parlor where you are there is a table, you lay down. I think what's unique about Reiki as well is that it is often practiced hands off. So there is no touching required, which I know touching people is can be challenging for a lot of potential clients. So that's really, really nice. Also, you don't need to undress. You can be there fully clothed. In fact, you are encouraged to wear sweatpants because you want to be as comfortable and cozy as possible because you really want to let go. And then you also have the option to go to not to go to attend a remote session, which you can receive from the comfort of your own home. Often this is done through a video call, but doesn't have to be, because we are talking about the energy practice or energy itself. So it's not required to be in the same space or even meet up at the same time. It's almost like I can send a Reiki treatment to a client and almost store it into a cloud. And when the client is ready, they can lay down and say, okay, I want to receive this Reiki healing that Linda sent me. And then they receive it whenever they want to. But most often we do the video call one-on-one because it's also nice to have the exchange. So that we have the first understanding of how does Reiki work. Megan, what can Reiki be used for? Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
god. Oh my god. Let me re-say that sentence
Okay.
because I didn't breathe enough.
Thought I was the only one who did that.
No, that's me. And then the last word kind of gets stuck and I feel like I'm choking. So,
Yeah, I get that.
Megan, what can Reiki be used for?
Okay, the possibilities of what we can use Reiki for are endless, but let's focus on some of the main and most commonly used things. So, it's important to say that the type of healing that Reiki gives us can be physical, it can be mental, it can be emotional, and it can be spiritual. And we'll get into this later on, but it's also important to say that the practitioner is not choosing what is coming through them. Like Linda said, it's channeled. So someone could come to us and have a specific need or be suffering from something specific. Reiki and its infinite universal loving intelligence provides exactly what is needed to the person who's receiving Reiki. That means our ego self or even our very experienced selves might have an expectation of what will be experienced or felt during a Reiki session. When I give Reiki to myself, I might think, oh, I've had a headache all day, and this will take my headache away. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes something different happens, and we're realizing that it's not a physical healing per se. It might be a more spiritual, emotional, or mental healing. So, walking into a Reiki session with zero expectations, I feel, is extremely helpful. Um, who can we send Reiki to? Linda got into the fact that we can give ourselves treatments, we can send Reiki to others. We can also send Reiki to animals, to plants, to crystals, to food and drink, a new book that we just bought from a bookshop, a present that we received and want to give to someone and want to put a little extra Reiki energy into. The possibilities are really endless, and it's cool to play around with that. Um, and like we talked about already, we can do Reiki in person. We can also send it across time and space. So when we hear this for the first time, I remember it broke me a little bit. Like I remember my teacher explaining you can send Reiki across time and space. And I walked into my class not knowing what Reiki was. And I was like, I'm broke. You just cracked my head wide open. And I love it. Okay, so this means we can send Reiki to ourselves at other points in what we perceive as linear time, like a past event or a future event. We can send Reiki to someone, like Linda said, to receive at a later time. I have time Friday evening, but my mom only has time on Sunday. So I send Reiki to my mom when I have time, and I say she's going to receive this on Sunday. And when she lies down on Sunday, she receives it. Those are some examples of how Reiki transcends time and space.
One
Linda.
example
Oh, yeah,
one
go ahead.
one example that I could give you to experience that, because in its essence, Reiki is beautiful, but it's also difficult to talk about. We don't really have the language or the words to describe all of that. You can hop on. I'm going to leave a video in the description box down below and also in the show notes, because I am sometimes channeling Reiki sessions for the collective and I upload them on YouTube. So it's exactly that principle that I apply there, where I send Reiki to whoever wants to watch this video and whoever wants to receive this healing. And then it's there for infinity. And you can watch it Monday, Tuesday, Friday, whenever you want to, or whenever. And I don't need to know about that beforehand, because I just create kind of this container. And anytime you want to plug into that, it's there for you. And if that feels very difficult to wrap your head around, maybe a physical experience of that might be better. So I'm going to
Mhm.
leave one video down below for you, or maybe two, so you have something to choose from and you can go ahead and check it out. Right? It's
Can I
free.
drop another example that might
Yes,
help
of course.
bridge into an understanding? My guides told me at one point that I had a lot of negative self-talk going on in my head, which I was not aware of. It was very insidious.
Mm,
And something like that is really hard to dissolve and break through because you
mhm,
need an awareness very often. So my guide said, create a record a Reiki session where you send Reiki to your negative self-talk. And then that is always available for you to play because Megan, you're going to need to do this many, many times in your life. It's just something that will crop up for you over and over again. So make a Reiki track for yourself and you can experience that healing, just by lying down and playing it. That's
uh,
another
and
example.
and I'm gonna make a note because I felt like that was channeled homework for me. So I'm gonna
Oh,
create that. I'm gonna create that. I have a session to create for next week, so I'm
I
gonna
love this though.
create that session, and then you're gonna find that one down below. So I'm
This
gonna
is one of
just
my
write it
very
down.
favorite parts of Reiki.
Reiki for negative self-talk, and I'm gonna create a session for the collective. Thank you for channeling that,
Oh,
Megan.
for the collective. Thank you, Linda.
Of course. Okay,
Oh.
cool. So, now that we already started to talk a little bit about what Reiki can do, and let's hop into what Reiki feels like because it's is the big unknown, and people are always curious. I remember I was curious about it as well, and it's important for you to know that it's a very individual experience. So while I'm going to give you some things that may happen, also you might not experience any of them. I've had clients coming in that don't feel any particular sensations other than feeling very nice and relaxed. I've had clients where that changed over time, where after they had a few sessions, they kept coming back because they felt nice and relaxed and also peaceful for a few days afterwards, who then started to experience some sensations. So when you're going into a session, usually you will lay down, like I said, fully clothed, whether that's at home or at the practitioner, and you will get covered in a blanket. Close your eyes. You got some nice relaxing music going on to paint the mood for you. And you take lots of deep breaths, and then you just allow yourself to let go as best as you can. And you're just laying on the table for however long you book the session for, whether that's an hour or longer than that or less than that. And what might happen is that you might have a visual experience, like you might see a vision, you might see colors, you might see shapes in the mind of your eye, you might even hear something, a phrase said, or a song playing, or some other kind of sound. You might even hear one of your guides talking to you. It's an experience that I've heard from many clients as well, that it was a combination of these things. You might have a specific emotion arising. Perhaps Megan's already started talking a little bit about how there's the physical pain, but what's happening is something on an emotional level. And sometimes you come with a physical pain, and then in the session, the emotion that is at the core of it will come into your consciousness, come into your awareness. So there might be an emotion arising in your body. You might even feel the emotion, not just know the emotion, but feel it connected to a particular physical sensation in your body, some kind of twinging or a little pressure somewhere. However, that may be, you might feel like a little knot or something that's popping open, even depending on what it feels like. Alongside this emotion, you might even have a specific memory arising that's connected to it. It could be a memory that you are aware of from this lifetime, but because Reiki transcends all distance and all time, you might even have experiences coming up from other lifetimes that you've had. You may be aware of these already, or it might be some kind of wake up moment where you're um, connecting to something that maybe you've only experienced in a dream before and it comes up again in this session. You might experience different sensations and temperature, either in body temperature or the temperature that you feel around you. It's very common to feel a warmth, but I've also heard people saying that they feel more coolness around or in different areas of their body. I know, Megan, you feel more coolness, right?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was a lot of heat and warmth, and people who received Reiki often said that, and I know that's super common, but then I started feeling as though instead of projecting energy, my hands kind of held space for like the ease of release of energy, and it feels suddenly cool when that happens, and the energy is not going back into my body. It's almost like I just activate something, or Reiki activates something using my physical body that allows something to be released like a vacuum. I don't know how else to explain it.
Hmm.
And the fact that I feel that doesn't mean that other practitioners are not doing it.
Yeah.
So my clairsentience is really heightened and really,
Yeah,
really
it
very
is.
sensitive. And even yesterday, I had this realization like, you know what, Megan, you feel a lot of things other people don't feel. Just remember that. So maybe there's something, that I'm feeling that other people don't feel, but I'm certain that the things that occur with me in the sessions are things that occur with other practitioners as well.
Mm.
Yeah, cool. I feel suddenly cool energy, not uncomfortable, but yeah.
So for me, it's heat. It's heat. It's warmth. It's also when I'm giving Reiki, my body heats up a lot. Which, if we have like 30 degrees outside Celsius, it's getting challenging for me because my body heats up a lot. And the more challenging the session is, or the more intense the session is that I give either myself or to a client, the more everything heats up. And I'm going to drop one thing here, which is not necessarily important for anyone who's listening, but I just thought you're talking about the coolness because you're a representation of the water energy, so that makes a lot of sense to me.
That's
I
exactly
just
what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's what I just thought about. Because for you it's
Yeah,
the water, and for me it's the fire. So it makes a lot of sense that you're experiencing
I
coolness
thought
because I've
exactly the
never
same
experienced
thing.
coolness.
Yes, Linda is
Okay.
fire energy, I'm water energy, and that was immediately my thought was like, "Oh, I wonder if that has to do with
Yeah.
it," because I often get cold during my sessions.
Wow.
I
No,
have
I
had
need to.
experiences of sweating and getting hot,
Yeah.
but I often go cold.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Is interesting. Okay.
Okay, we're learning something about ourselves here while we're recording this. That's nice.
I think it's helpful for
Yeah,
everyone to just kind of like,
yeah,
absorb information.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so something else that you might experience is a specific kind of release that also might feel differently. You might hear something, see something, feel something. You might feel that you need to start breathing in a specific way. Like maybe taking a couple of deep breaths in and then sighing it out, or giving whatever emotion comes up the permission and having a thought that, I'm allowing this to go, I'm releasing this, thank you for being there, I no longer need it. And one thing that's also very common is that you might not experience a lot because you are being sent into a deep trance state, which feels like you're sleeping or you're drifting in and out of sleep. Um, from a practitioner perspective, it's something that I notice with people who are coming to work at a deeper layer, but maybe their conscious mind is a little wary of it or fearful of it or not ready for it, but they feel comfortable and safe. So I'm entering the session, and after about 2 minutes, they're out cold. And I feel that all of a sudden more Reiki energy is flowing from my hands into the client. So that's something that I've experienced a lot. Um, yeah, and then them in again also when they're in this trance state, maybe they dream a bit. Sometimes people also cry. It's also a way of releasing or yawning, whatever it may be, burping or other releases of gas. I'm gonna leave
I
it at
just
that.
wanted to say, yeah, physical release is experienced by different people differently,
Yeah,
and it's all valid.
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what happens in terms of experiences that may arise after a session, because you go into a session, you receive this hour-long Reiki session, 90-minute, whatever. But the Reiki healing doesn't stop there because the Reiki healing continues way long after, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months. And the effects can range from being very, very prominent to being very subtle and sort of like seeping in and like trickling in like water, like little droplet here and there. And of course, there is the component of physical healing. There is a component of mental healing where you feel that your thoughts are in a better place. The physical healing, I feel like, is self explanatory. Then we have the emotional healing, where you feel more calm overall, or things that stressed you out a lot before, you are meeting it from a more level headed place, or you feel like you can emotionally self regulate more or in an easier way. And Megan, do you want to talk about the spiritual effects?
Sure. I think that this can be tricky to wrap our heads around before we have a lot of experience with Reiki.
Mm.
But the spiritual experiences that I've had relate to gaining clarity around maybe topics that felt confusing, or times of not knowing, or like feeling like I'm moving through an unknown. And
Mm.
the spiritual guidance that comes through can either just be reassuring that everything is okay, or provide nudges towards next steps. Um, it can also, like Linda mentioned, and I've experienced this a few times, a person's team, I often referred to as guides, I call them my team. Uh, a person's team introduces themselves through a Reiki session. So I've had a few examples of people receiving Reiki, and it's like, oh, their team is coming through. I I feel them dropping in, and I know it's happening, and I'm excited to share it afterwards. But then the person says they themselves had, something come through for them, that indicated that their team was reaching out through a Reiki session. Um, and just generally receiving Reiki over time, it is a spiritual practice. Reiki is a spiritual practice. And so as we receive more and more Reiki over time, this is aligning us with our path and our purpose, and we feel more in harmony with ourselves and with the world around us.
To add to that, and to explain it maybe a little bit, you need to remember that Reiki is this universal love energy, this source energy. So when it flows through your body, what it actually does, it finds all the areas in your emotional body, in your mental body, your physical body, and your spiritual body that are somewhat disrupted, somewhat off balance. And it finds all of these areas and it flows into all of these areas in all of the different layers, and it creates balance again. It rebalances all of these little points of disruption. That's why Reiki, when you're going into a session, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what you will get out of it, because Reiki will flow into all of the areas where it's needed. And as a practitioner, I mean, some practitioners are more in tune with that, some are less in tune with that. But at the end of the point, it's at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because Reiki will benefit and go where it needs to go. And through this rebalancing, anything that is not aligned with this universal love energy, or anything that is causing you to be imbalanced, will be brought up to the surface for examination. And that's why we say it's a bit subtle, like with the trickling of the water, because maybe you will have a meeting with a person that you've been in some kind of relationship for a while, and things felt a bit off, but you were kind of powering through. But you start to have an insight, and something pops up, and you notice things in a different way, and it starts to get your thoughts going in a specific direction, or it nudges you into a specific realization that you might have. And bit by bit, the spiritual alignment that Megan spoke of will start to guide you through your life. You will get more in tune with your intuition as well. Reiki is great when it comes to opening up our psychic senses. When it comes to receiving Reiki, that's one of the benefits that can happen after a session, but very, very strongly when you learn Reiki yourself. It's a very prominent when it comes to opening up the psychic senses and realigning you with yourself, because everything that's in the way of your psychic senses will come to the surface. You examine that, you give yourself Reiki sessions, and it will go away. Like, like it will be rebalanced. And when your system is rebalanced, that's when all of the channels are open again. So, of course, you are going to receive more information, more input. Your intuition will be highlighted. And we already started speaking about this a little bit, that Reiki can help you point yourself or point to the direction of other lives. Megan, do you maybe want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Um, Things come to us when they're supposed to come to us. So
Hmm.
walking into any Reiki session with a particular intention from our ego can actually hinder our spiritual growth because we just don't have the perspective that the universe has and that Reiki energy brings to us. And when it is time during Reiki sessions, it can be that we are given guidance about a life. And, we use the term past lives, but I'm going to say other lives.
Hmm.
And we'll lean into what Linda and I have already talked about, which is that we perceive time as linear, but in fact, everything is occurring simultaneously. So all these lives that we are living, we're living them now. So Reiki can reveal to us a life, an aspect of a life that's impacting us here in the now. And it's important to say that this might occur during the Reiki session and it might occur after the session. And um, a way that I often receive this guidance is through dreams. But, the possibilities are endless. And like Linda said, and I want to emphasize this, we receive guidance in the best way for us, whatever our
Mm.
strongest psychic abilities are, our strongest clairs, a way that's going to feel supportive and loving. Or if Reiki knows that we can handle it, maybe something that's a bit overwhelming and scary because it's supposed to happen that way. Linda and I have all sorts of stories of things like that. But it could be that past lives come in a really um, subtle way so that at first we don't even understand that these are other lives. And then puzzle pieces start to come together and Reiki shows
Mm.
us more and more. So it's so wonderful to remain curious and open to the experience of understanding how other lives are impacting us here and not only in a negative way. It's so important to say that there are many positive ways that we influence other lives and that other lives influence us as well.
One thing I want to add here is that Reiki, or like the other lives, can also come to you beforehand, and you have that one particular experience that you received in mind, and you go into a Reiki session. Because I specifically do Reiki sessions like this, where people come and they say, "Hey, I've had." Oh, I could talk about this for like 20 different episodes, where I'm just it's so interesting. People have dream experiences, people have physical experiences that are then connected to dream experiences. And it's like a puzzle piece, over the course of maybe even a couple of years, they always start to get like another puzzle piece. And at first, it's just a dream. And, like we don't really know it's just a dream. It was a bit weird. But anyway, whatever, my unconscious does what it
Right.
does. And then a couple of months later, maybe that dream expands a bit, or you see something else from that. Life, or you have an interest in a specific documentary and you watch it and you have a weirdly strong emotional reaction to it, and you're like, I don't know why this is so emotional for me, I don't get it. A couple of months later, you have another couple of dreams, and like there are all of these different ways that it can come together. But even then, even if you go to a Reiki session and you come with me with that experience, um, we will of course bring healing to that experience, but often what comes up is it's almost like a network. There are other things connected to that as well, other lifetimes connected to that particular thing as well. And it's like Reiki gives us the ability to close a cycle very often. And maybe not just in one session, maybe it might be multiple sessions, of course, right? And it's not the only thing that can help you close a cycle, because if you have a cycle open, there are changes in behavior that you want to do, right? So there's an active part on your end as well. But it's something that can help you close all different kinds of cycles. And I felt that that was important to mention here. On that note as well, it can help us to find, or like it's a way for guidance to come to us, right, Megan?
Yeah, this is really interesting. And when I give Reiki to people, I always make a point of saying, after the session, take good care of yourself and listen to what your body needs and open up your spidey senses and be aware, because it might not be a dream where you lie down, you have a dream, you wake up and say, aha. It could be in waking life that there are other ways that the universe is sending you messages on the heels of Reiki session. It could be a sign, like you are thinking about a purple dinosaur, and then later in the afternoon, you see a little kid carrying a gigantic stuffed purple dinosaur across the street, and you think like, huh. And you start to notice like a synchronicity related to signs that leads you down the road of uncovering a deeper meaning. Could be numbers that you suddenly start noticing repeated numbers and feel called to look into what that means, or that claircognizance kicks in. You're washing a dish in the kitchen and suddenly you know something. It's like, wait a second, where did that thought come from? And why do I know that? What's the source of that information? And you know it is true. And the possibilities are endless. Linda also mentioned clairaudient examples. You turn on the radio and you hear a song. It could even be a song you're completely familiar with, but suddenly it sounds like the person who's singing the song on the radio, it's like they're grabbing the microphone and they're grabbing you and they're singing it to you. And you're hearing the lyrics and you're like, oh my God, this message is for me. Yeah. Things like that.
Well, my introverted self is very happy that that's not happening in person. Like people singing happy birthday to you at the restaurant. Oh, I die. I die. Okay, so Reiki overall also increases your sense of well-being. That's the main benefit, or like a main, yeah, the main benefit. It's increased feeling of wellness in all of you. Maybe we can jump into talking about what our own Usui Reiki Ryoho lineage is, if you yourself are interested in learning. So, our own Usui, our own lineage starts with our teacher Romana, because Megan and I have the same Reiki master, which is Romana Kati in Berlin. Love you so much. She's incredible, such a good teacher. And that's how
Love
Megan
you,
and I,
Romana.
yeah, so much. And that's how Megan and I also connected. We were not in class together, but
Mhm.
there is a group chat together with people who have, I think, Reiki level 2 and up. We're going to talk about the levels a bit later. Don't worry
Yep.
about it. We're going to talk to you exactly about what's in each level. And I remember Megan wrote a question of who did, like, what was your question again?
I came into that chat. I'm very much like, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall and see what I can learn and how I can grow. And one day I thought I need to ask people about using Reiki to heal past lives, because it was coming to me
Yeah. Yeah.
fast and furious. So I was like, does anyone have experience healing past lives? And like people were talking about it. And Linda came in and was like, yes, absolutely. Would love to exchange about this. Let's set up a Zoom call with everyone. And
Only with you.
I just jumped over and messaged Linda
Yeah.
directly
Yeah.
and was like, hi. And so we set up a call just to the two of us.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we'll get into our story later. One of the reasons why I needed to learn Reiki and why Linda needed to learn Reiki was because it brought us together. Thank you, Reiki.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point, actually, it was really nice because at that point, I had been doing quite a few past life Reiki sessions, but I had nobody to talk about, and these experiences were trippy. I mean, very trippy on myself as well. But that's a
Yeah.
story for another time.
We'll have so many other episodes related to
Yeah.
Reiki, and this is just fun to feel the juicy bits and where we're going to go into more depth
Yeah.
later on.
So
I'm excited.
when it comes to our Reiki lineage, like I said, our direct teacher is Ramana, but When you learn Usui Reiki, you will have a Reiki lineage. So you will have a teacher, a list of teachers, almost like a family tree. Is that right? Yeah, family
Ah,
tree.
right,
Yeah.
it's like having Reiki ancestors.
Yeah, Reiki ancestors that goes back to
Yeah.
Mikao Usui. And if you learn either with me or with Megan, you will get a list and you will see exactly who learned from who and how it got passed down to us right now, or to you right now, then I guess. And it goes back to Mikao Usui. And like we mentioned, he was living in Japan and teaching in Japan. And there was some interference or challenges with teaching Reiki and bringing it to the West due to the Second World War, where Japan shut down. There was a Japanese American woman, her name was Hawayo Takata, who went to Japan and learned from Mikao Usui. And she's the one that brought it to the West. So in Hawaii, that's where her school, Reiki school, was. And from there on, it spread globally through the Western world. And there are two different styles of Reiki taught. There is the Western style that was taught by Takata, and then there is an Eastern style, Japanese intuitive style. And the main difference between these two is that Hawaii Takata felt like the Western mind was not as intuitive or as spiritually inclined as the Eastern at that time. And you need to remember that there is a very strong tradition when it comes to spirituality and intuition in connection with medicine in the East versus the West. So don't take it as an insult, please. Just wanted to put that out there. And she developed a manual for different hand positions that the student would go, or the practitioner would go through with every session. So you have your hands at the crown for 5 minutes, and then you move it down to the third eye for 5 minutes, etc. And you have these set hand positions going down through the entire body. And this was to ensure that the client would receive Reiki in all the different areas of their body in whichever intensity they needed to. And simultaneously, it gave the practitioner a manual, a routine to ensure that, like Reiki was flowing everywhere and that the session would be complete. The Japanese intuitive style is something that is developed over time, where you start to get, as you are in the session as a practitioner, you start to get some insight or feedback, or I'm going to say some guidance as to where you to place your hands and how long to stand where, how to move your hands. And this is individual from client to client, because no two clients that come are exactly the same. Even if the client comes on 2 different days, it will be two completely different sessions. So that also means for you, if you are receiving a Reiki treatment, even if you experience one thing with this practitioner on that particular treatment day, if you go to another treatment day with the same practitioner, this session could be and feel completely different. That's important for you to know. And this Japanese style is something, like I said, that's developed throughout your exploration and your practice of Reiki. Goes alongside the opening up of your psychic senses, because how you receive that information of how you need to move through the session, how you need to conduct the session, is individual and connected to your own psychic abilities and your psychic senses. So some people will know they need to stand there. Some people will feel as a sensation in their hands or somewhere else in their body that they need to stand there for longer. Some people will hear it. Some people will see it. Um, and oftentimes it's a mix of these different inputs depending on the session and the day and however you feel yourself on that particular day. So when Megan and I are teaching, we are teaching the hand positions, but what happens very, very often is that you start with the set hand positions where you're like, okay, this is my guidebook. This is how I can make sure that I don't make any mistakes. And you start that. And as you start to practice more, you will start to get some feedback and you will start to feel like, I think I need to stand here a bit longer at the heart. I think I need to move my hand in this particular way. I don't know why. I have no idea why I am doing this right now, but it needs to happen. And this is something that is developed over time. And it's really beautiful to see students slowly trusting their own perception a bit more and more, and guiding the session more and more. So again, you can start out with one and then you shift into the other, but it's nice regardless. And then Of course, there are other variations in different Reiki lineages when it comes to this. So let's get into some of the anecdotal part. How did Megan and I come to learn Reiki ourselves? So Megan, how did you come to learn Reiki?
So I did the thing where I was marching my little march on my spiritual path and feeling very supported and not at all challenged. And then there was a point where I started noticing that people were talking about Reiki a lot. And it wasn't the first time I had ever heard of Reiki. But I will say that every time I heard about Reiki before I started walking my spiritual path, it was often referred to as not real and made fun of, like a joke,
Mm,
like,
yeah.
woo woo, but not in an interesting, compelling way, like in a um, it's not real kind of way.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that's important to say. So when I started
Yeah.
hearing about Reiki through others, and not people being like, oh, I got a Reiki session, but literally people just being like, Reiki. Oh, yeah, there's a thing called Reiki. Like, it was kind of like the universe is like, hey, Megan, Reiki. Yeah. And it happened over the course of 4 or 5 months. And then finally, and I know it's because I had been conditioned to believe that Reiki is nonsense. That's really what was kind of in the back of my head, that Reiki is nonsense. But after a few months, and I had a really strong intuition at that point, I knew that I was being told to look into Reiki and not like go online and read about it, but that it was time for me to learn it. And my background is teaching, so I'm I studied to be a teacher, an English teacher, and in America, a German teacher. And I always really identified with that calling, being a teacher. I never associated Reiki with teaching at all. I only associated Reiki with healing. So I thought, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not a healer. Spoiler alert, everyone is a healer because we're all here to heal ourselves and potentially others. But I thought, okay, I am healing. I'm healing myself. That's what my whole spiritual journey is about. It is a healing journey. So I'm going to learn Reiki. I'm going to find the right teacher. And I couldn't. I live in Frankfurt. I wanted to learn Reiki in English. I can speak German, but I could feel I should learn it in English. And that's really interesting in hindsight. I kept Googling, trying to find Reiki courses here in Frankfurt. And at the time, my kids were really young. So the idea of leaving and not being with my kids for a couple of days at a time was like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. And I was just set on staying in Frankfurt. And after maybe a month or 3 weeks of just going online, finding nothing in Frankfurt, I did one more search, and my whole family was sitting with me in our living room. I'm like, Reiki, whatever, like entered something about Reiki, and I did not enter Frankfurt. And the first thing that came up was with Romana. That's our teacher, Romana, in Berlin. And I knew immediately that I was supposed to learn Reiki with her. So I click on, with Romana Reiki, and I'm not like, who is this person? What do they have to say about Reiki? I'm literally like, when do they have courses? So, I'm like, okay, when's the course? It's, 3 weeks from now. And I look over at my husband and I'm like, I want to learn Reiki in Berlin on these dates. And he goes, book it. We'll take the train to Berlin together and I'll watch the kids and you do Reiki for the weekend. And whenever things like that happen for me, I know it's the best feeling. It's like my whole team is like, "Yeah, we're doing this." Yeah, so I like booked it. I went to Berlin, I walked into the course, I sat down, and Romana was like, "So does anyone have any experience with Reiki?" And at that very moment, I was like, "I really don't know anything about Reiki."
Yeah.
And I will say, I became a Reiki master, so I did my Reiki Level 3 this past summer. We're recording now in what month is it, Linda? I want to say it's January.
March,
It is
end of
March
March, almost April.
this year, I'm telling you. So, yeah, gosh, it's almost been a year since I did my Reiki master. Linda
Yeah.
and I coincidentally, not there's no, I can't believe I used the word coincidence. The synchronicity of, I don't believe in coincidences. That's so weird that I said that. The synchronicity of us getting our Reiki master at the same time. We did it a couple of weeks apart.
Yeah.
That was last year in June. So it's been like 10 months or 9 months.
Mm, mm.
And I have just recently, right before recording this now with Linda, had my big moment where I feel that I am embodying the role of teacher. And that comes in at Reiki Level 3. And I knew when I went to go do Reiki Level 3, I knew I'm going to teach this. And I thought I was really ready, but I just had my very ready self step inside of me in the
Mm.
last couple of weeks. And I can say in this recording, I am a teacher, right? Like I can
Yeah.
feel that. So that's so cool how in the very beginning I thought Reiki can't be for me. I'm a teacher. And here I am. And I'm like, I'm a Reiki teacher.
Do you know what? Like teaching is one of my favorite parts because it's so much fun to have students coming in, whether that's like also in person or through video call, doesn't matter. But to have students coming in and being like, okay, this sounds interesting and I feel called to it, but I don't really know why and I don't know what to expect and I don't even know if this is gonna work for me. Very common. People are like, this is for everybody else. I couldn't channel, I couldn't do that. And you start to see you teach and we go through everything, and it's instantaneously that they are, they receive the Reiki attunement. We can talk about that in a moment as well. And then they start practicing, and you start to see their confidence grow in themselves, and then being like, oh my God, I can actually feel something. Or sometimes it takes a few weeks, where they keep going with it. Same with the, like I said, with going to a treatment, sometimes it takes a little while, but people are like, okay, but something is changing and something is happening, and it's so much fun. Oh, this is like my favorite part to lean back and see.
It's just such a privilege to be a part of someone's journey, to like
Yeah,
hold their hand or just witness it. Like I think a big part of we humans, our work here is to just bear witness. And so I love that. It's
there's
beautiful.
so much awe and so much excitement that comes
Mm.
through. That's just I love it. Okay, I really do.
Okay, Linda,
Yeah.
please tell us how you came to learn Reiki. Tell us your
Oh,
story.
oh my lord. Well, I remembered that I did come across Reiki like many years ago, and I actually had a course bookmarked. It was at a time when I let me think about for one moment at the time frame here. Okay, we're looking at 20 2017. No, sorry. 2018. 2018 was when I started to really connect to tarot. And there was one tarot reader that I watched on YouTube who had Reiki or who gave Reiki classes, Reiki sessions. And I liked their energy. And I bookmarked one of their courses, and then it completely fell out of my mind. I couldn't remember that I even wanted to look at that. I have so many bookmarks. I'm going to be honest, I'm that person that has 20 different tabs open and even more. Okay, so I forgot about it and it kind of fell out of my head completely. And then in 2021, I think, 2021, for some reason, I was already doing spiritual channeling work at that time, not professionally, but my psychic senses came back online with full force in 2020, and I started to be clairaudient, clairvoyant, and really clairsentient and connect with my spirit team, hear them around, being able to channel messages through tarot readings myself. And I was familiar with doing channeling work, and that was a big guiding force in my life and still is. And I felt called to book a Reiki treatment, to have a Reiki session from someone, and I needed to go there in person. I hadn't watched any Reiki treatments on YouTube from anybody. I didn't do that, but I felt called to book, and that was random enough because no one in my field was spiritual, no one was doing or into Reiki at all. So I was like, you know what? Let me just have a look. And I was living in Berlin at the time and had been for many years. So I looked up Reiki Berlin, and I also found Romana because Romana, I went to Romana as a client first before I became a student. So I booked my first Reiki session and I was curious and I went there and it was a really nice session. It was interesting. What Megan shared in the earlier this episode that sometimes guides come in and they will let themselves known. Well, I have one guide that will physically touch me. And that sounds creepy as hell, I know. But wait 1 second. They will stand behind me and then very gently, just with like, it feels like it's two fingers, tap at the top of my crown, very gently, like a little hello, I'm here. And they will often stand behind me. And I was used to them doing that with me enough in meditation and them feeling their presence, focusing on it, that it didn't freak me out. It felt really peaceful. And I was in the session and I knew that Ramana was doing hands off. I knew she wasn't touching me, but I felt I felt the tapping on my crown and I felt it in like different parts of my body, like my shoulders and my client being there. And I had a conversation with Ramana afterwards and I asked her and I'm like, you didn't touch me, right? And she said no. And I'm like, okay, cool. So that was my guides. And I remember asking her how it worked because I felt the energy flowing through my body, felt like electric kind of currency flowing through my body and relaxing me. And she started explaining, and I remember I rudely interrupted her because that's what I sometimes do. I can't, I can't. Okay, so I interrupted her and I said, so it's like channeling. And she said, yeah. Kind of surprised that I knew that what that was. And then I didn't have a session for a long time and I was in a job that I had no business being in. It wasn't a good environment for me whatsoever. In fact, I feel like I'm learning even like right now, I feel like I'm learning how wrong that environment was for me and the whole premise and everything. And I knew I needed to quit, but I was terrified of quitting. But I wanted to quit because I wanted to make a fashion brand. So one thing you can know about me is that I love
I
clothes,
just have to
clothes
say,
making.
Linda, you're such a talented designer and sewer, truly.
Thank you. So I love sewing,
It's
and I've
not
been
a pipe
sewing,
dream, people. This is, like, legit
and I've
incredibly
been
talented.
sewing since 2009, and I've always had people asking me, like, in asking me what I'm wearing, like, and asking me if I can do something for them, etc. So I knew I had it in me and I wanted to do it and I also specifically wanted to teach people how to sew as well because it has been I feel like we could probably do a spiritual episode about sewing at some point because it's connected like this, like very very closely because it's a healing tool for me, but I'm going to I'm gonna stop myself and not dive too far into that. But I thought I was gonna do the fashion brand. Okay, so I was like, okay, I'm ready for it. Let me quit my job for this. And I quit my horrible, horrible job, and I um, had a Reiki session booked for the day after, for the day after my last working day, because I knew I was gonna need it. Your Megan is laughing, right? I knew I was gonna need it. And I went into that session, and remember, I said the first session was really chill, and the second session was not chill at all. It was very, very intense. And I felt like different pressure parts of my body, and I always like almost wanted to move and like twitch a bit. And it felt like things were being flushed out. And after that, I slept for about a month. Like, like about 12 to 14 hours a day I slept because I needed to recover from that job. And I think I was also in a bit of a burnout that was going on. And then I started to prepare my fashion brand. And I started to feel not great. I started to freak out because I felt anxiety, but I'm familiar with anxiety and the different flavors of anxiety and how they present themselves in me. So I know the difference if I feel anxious because my mind is racing and I'm overthinking. But there's also a flavor of anxious when I'm going in the wrong direction. And to me, that feels like there's some kind of acid bubbling in my stomach, like something's not right. And that's a feeling that will show up when I am doing that particular thing that I want to do. And it showed up when I was planning social media posts and I was planning um, all of the work that I needed to do in order to put myself put myself out there. Okay, that's when that anxiety started to bubble up, and I'm like, shit. Like, I know what this means. I know this means that this isn't right, but I literally quit my job for this. And I know I was not supposed to be there. It feels like I'm not supposed to go in that direction. So, what the hell am I supposed to do? Of course, I cried and I freaked out and I had like a little meltdown moment. And at night, before I went to sleep, I sat down on my bed and I said out loud, Universe, clearly this is not what I'm supposed to do. I have no idea what to do. Tell me what to do. Like, just tell me what to do and I will do it. I'm not going to ask questions. Just give me, like, what is it? And I went to sleep and I woke up in the middle of the night. I think it was like close to 3 a.m., because of course it was. And I heard just playing over in my head Reiki Master, Reiki Master, Reiki Master, Reiki Master, like on a loop. And it was like playing for a couple of minutes and I was thinking, do I need to get up and do something? And it was just like, no, it's just receiving that. And I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. And I've written it down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to bed. I'm gonna deal with that in the morning. And I went back to sleep, and in the morning I saw what I've written down, Reiki Master, and I was like, okay, I know I knew Romana was teaching, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just check her website. I'm gonna see if she has a class coming up. And I checked her website, and I remember it was a Monday morning, and she had a class coming up on that Saturday, so that in that same week. And I was like, she only takes eight people in the first course, like I do as well. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna see. I'm sure she's gonna be fully booked. Like 100, it's like it's a week prior. I'm sure she's gonna be 100% booked, but let me just check. And I sent her an email, and I think like after an hour or so, I get a reply that's saying, "Hey, funny that you asked me because I had one student that needed to reschedule and dropped out and needed to reschedule to a different date. So I have one place available, and that just happened. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yes, please." And then I went to the course still thinking that it was connected to clothing. And the first course, it was incredible. I have no words for it. It felt like coming home. It felt very intuitive because I was already used to doing channeling work, right? So that felt like an extension of that as well. And quickly after that, I realized that I was at a crossroads and I would have to choose, at least at that moment in my life, I would have to choose going with Reiki and maybe doing tarot professionally and whatever else was over there. Like I didn't know what was over there, or doing the fashion brand because I couldn't dedicate my energy and my time to both. And I remember sitting on my living room floor and having actually some tarot cards out and pulling some cards for myself and having that moment of realization of being like, oh my God, I need to choose. And I remember my guide saying, it's completely up to you. Like, whatever you will do will be a healing tool. What do you want to do? Like, we're ready for both. Both are good. It's just different ways. And I ended up going with Reiki and tarot and just energy work in general because I didn't really know what was over there. And I'm curious, okay? I'm curious, and if there's something that I don't know and and it's even more that I don't know, it's like it's a felt experience. I felt so drawn to that, and I felt like with the fashion brand, I had already laid out 100 different paths that I could have chosen. I could have looked at 100 different people creating fashion brands, sustainable fashion brands, creating healing fashion brands. And there are so many other people already doing that and like paths that I could follow. Like I could literally look at, okay, so this is when they did their first design, then they took 3 months break, and then they did this, like I felt very predictable. And the other part, I was like completely in the dark, no idea what that was. And I ended up going with that because I was so compelled and so curious. And when I gave Reiki treatments to other people, also very early on as a bit of a practice, I started to notice that my other psychic senses were connected to that and shining through. And I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That's kind of fun. And well, here I am all of these years later, I guess. Yeah, worked out.
Do we wanna talk a little bit about the timing of our journey? Do you think that's something that would be helpful to share,
Yeah,
or
I was just thinking about the same thing.
yeah? Do you wanna talk
Yeah,
about your timing, Linda? You shared
sure.
a bit about, the years, but
Yeah,
when did you learn
so
Reiki 1, 2, 3?
um,
Excuse me.
it was in 2022, in autumn. That's when I learned Reiki Level 1, and Level 2 I learned in 2023. And then I took some time. I initially I went in and I thought I was gonna be fast with it, and then I really noticed the after effects of learning Reiki, which again we will also talk about in a moment of what happens between the different levels because there's a lot going on. And then I took some time, and between level 2 and 3, so the master level, I took about a year of time. And this is again like almost a year ago now. So I've just been taking my time with this. How about you?
Yeah, when you know, right?
Mm.
Um, I learned Reiki 1 in July of 2023. I immediately contacted Romana to do Reiki Level 2 and, did that as soon as I possibly could after learning Reiki Level 1. That was in September.
Mm.
And then I was very surprised that I was feeling called to learn Reiki Level 3. So just say it again. So my head is July 2023, Reiki 1, September 2023, Reiki 2. And then I came into the year 2024, and Linda and I had a lot going on together with
Uh-huh.
Reiki.
Uh-huh.
And I never imagined that by May, because I was just reading through our text chain, Linda. Linda and I
Okay.
have this amazing log of our journey together, and
Mhm.
we go back and look at it, especially when I'm preparing for um, these episodes.
Mm.
And I just realized, so in May, this is so cool. In May, I really went from like Reiki 3 not on my radar whatsoever, knowing that I will do it someday, to the very next day sitting in a cafe drinking coffee, and it was like, boop, send Romana an email and book Reiki 3 with her. And I was like, what? So
Mm.
I did. And then right after I wrote Romana, I wrote Linda and I was like, Linda, I just booked Reiki Level 3. And Linda was like, oh my gosh, I think I have to go back and read it. I think you wrote, oh my gosh, I just, or I was going to write Romana today. It was like you had just, or you were going to write
Yeah.
her that day. And we ended up booking both for June. Linda learned at the beginning of June, and then I learned at
Yeah.
the end of June.
Yeah.
So it all came up pretty fast for me, but I did it in the right time. And I thought that I'd be teaching way sooner. I have not taught my first student or my first class yet. I'm shocked that I haven't, but I always listen to what my intuition tells me is, right for me. And I know that I haven't, that it wasn't time yet. And so
Mm.
now, just now, I mentioned it earlier in
Yeah.
the episode. Just now, I'm like, oh yeah, it's coming, and I'm
Mm.
really, really excited. I
Mm.
feel really ready now.
That's great.
Can I share
I
one more thing about my journey that I didn't mention, which could be interesting to
yes,
other people? Because I made it
of course.
sound like I was just like casually having my journey and everything was really easy and cool. and that's not accurate.
That's where the dirty laugh needs to come out.
That's not accurate, people. So listen, this is important for everyone because I don't want anyone being like, "Oh, Megan, that's so what? How can that be?" No, it was not easy, trust me. What I meant to say was that just receiving the message of learning Reiki came very straightforward, and I picked that up. It was motivated by one other very significant and terrifying aspect of my spiritual journey, which was I was being haunted. I was being
Yeah.
haunted. I've mentioned this in other episodes. I was being haunted to the point where it was ramping up, and I was really feeling a lot of fear, and I was feeling it whenever I was in my home.
Mm.
And I love my home so much, and I have a beautiful home, and it just was like, no, I wasn't blaming my home, and I wasn't feeling like I wanted to move away. I felt like, no, I want to reclaim my power. I want to reclaim my home. And I did not like what was going on in my, dream world and in my waking living world. And I had two little kids, and I was getting a lot of information through other sources about ghosts and earthbound spirits and learning about them. And one thing I heard was that Reiki can be used to assist in crossing spirits over. And the minute I heard that, I was like, oh, yeah, I got to learn Reiki. That's the way I'm going to do this. And I was just hell bent on learning how to do it with Reiki. And when I walked into Reiki 1 and learned Reiki 1 with a completely open mind, there was a part of me that was like, oh, but I don't know how to do that with Reiki right now. And right after I learned Reiki 1, my family and I went on a vacation to Iceland. And we stayed at an accommodation where we walked in, and immediately I was like, oh no, oh gosh, this isn't good, which is weird because normally my intuition will always tell me ahead of booking what we should book and where we should go. So that was really bizarre. And I was like, oh, I don't like it here. And the place was a beautiful space and renovated, but I could just feel it was haunted. And I was just into Reiki 1 and giving myself Reiki 1 treatments. I went to sleep having finished giving myself my Reiki treatment for the night. And I woke up to the loudest banging inside a wooden freestanding wardrobe, antique wardrobe in the bedroom where I was sleeping. And I looked at my clock, and it was not even midnight. It was like 11:45 at night. The entire night, this has never happened to me before and since. The entire night, I did not sleep because every time I was getting ready to sleep, something in the closet was like bang. It sounded like someone was wearing steel-toed boots and kicking the closet. It was summer in Reiki. It was still pretty warm. I was sleeping under every blanket, and I was completely still. I did not want to move. I was paralyzed in fear,
Yeah.
calling on Archangel Michael, calling on my team, praying to the heavens to make this stop.
Yeah.
I was so scared. And that incident, it went on until 7 in the morning, people. And in the morning, instead of being like, because I felt that it was somehow connected to Reiki energy,
Mm.
and my reaction was, fuck all y'all. I'm continuing on. I've already booked Reiki 2. I'm moving forward with this because Reiki 1, I had not cultivated the skill to understand how to use Reiki to cope with
Yeah.
that. But I knew it. I was like, I'm marching forward. I'm learning Reiki 2, and I'm going to figure this out. So that's a huge aspect of me learning Reiki. And then fast forward to 2024, the beginning of 2024,
Mm.
Linda and I figured it out. We
Oh
figured
my
it out
God.
in a major way, and that was a huge part of why I needed to learn Reiki, but also why I was so motivated to learn it.
There's an episode coming. It will be the next episode and the episode after These two episodes will focus a bit more on the journey. So the next episode will be about what happened after we learned Reiki and going into what Megan spoke about, being haunted and learning how to use Reiki to release different kinds of energies, different kinds of spirits, all of that stuff. And throughout this time, we have actually developed a specific Reiki application, a new technique, if you will. It's not an entirely new branch of Reiki. It's still founded in all of the principles and practices of Usui Reiki. It's more of an extension, and we're calling it attachment releasement. And this is what we learned how to do. And talking about how Reiki guides your journey, it needed to happen in the way that it happened and when it happened, and also before Megan and I even learned how to be a Reiki teacher, because that part was integral to informing the kind of teacher that Megan and I would become. So going forward, we will teach this specific technique of Reiki as well. Can be applied to other people, can be applied to different places, a home or a public place, an area, or an object. I'm sure there are people of you that I've either had the experience or heard people sharing experiences of buying furniture secondhand, and then having lots of things going on in the home, and these things only stopping either after they've removed the piece of furniture or having someone come to do a specific kind of cleanse. All of these techniques are in this entire wheelhouse of what Megan and I developed and channeled and learned. And there was no one who could teach us that, because there was not a particular Reiki practitioner that was doing or is doing what we're doing. I just wanted to mention that as well. So, with that little view into the future, if you are interested in learning Reiki yourself, you might find it a bit confusing because there are different levels of Reiki. So, let's talk about the different levels of Reiki and more of the specifics when it comes to learning Reiki. So, how Reiki is learned according to our lineage is that we have 4 different courses. We have Reiki Level 1, Reiki Level 2, Reiki Level 3, and Reiki Level 4. It's guiding you from being a beginner or a Reiki practitioner to a master teacher. Each of these levels is characterized by a Reiki attunement. And a Reiki attunement is when the Reiki master, the Reiki teacher, connects you to the Reiki energy. When I'm teaching that, I like to give the analogy of me being the electrician that will plug you, like you are the plug and there is the cord connected, and I'm plugging you into the outlet of the Reiki energy. Because when you are channeling Reiki energy, you want to be sure of what you're channeling. And it's like I'm laying the electric cable so that when you open the faucet and let the Reiki energy flow through you, that you know and you're sure that this is what you're channeling and this is what will come through. So when this cable is laid, if you will, what it will do for you, it will give you the ability to channel Reiki at anytime you want. And these Reiki attunements, you will get one Reiki attunement with each of the Reiki levels. And what this will do for you is it will, if you want to stay with the cable analogy, it will upgrade the cable. So you are able to channel more and more of this Reiki energy through you, which means that you will become a more and more powerful healer as you go through this journey. You also get more specialized when it comes to the kind of Reiki energy that you're channeling, and we will talk about this when we're talking about level 2. So maybe we can talk about the different levels and the different courses. Megan, do you want to take that?
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about each level in our lineage and generally what's learned and the progression from level to level. At level 1 in our lineage, it's also referred to as the awakening. So this is in the physical, we're attuned to Reiki. We can connect to Reiki, like Linda said, for the rest of our life at any time that we choose to, and channel Reiki for ourselves in person where we are in that moment, and for anyone else who is physically present with us, and for any object, and also to the physical space that we occupy. And it's really the emphasis on building our relationship, establishing a foundation with Reiki. The more you practice at this level, the more you feel and understand your relationship with Reiki, the more you learn about how it works through you and for you. And in our lineage, you attend a course, and the course instruction is as important as the attunement. So the course instruction that you learn during level 1 assists you with understanding things like your energy centers in your body and other tools and techniques that help us as channels for Reiki, and also help us in our meditation and our focus in removing ego from our sessions. So there's really beautiful wisdom passed down through our lineage in the coursework that we have. And at the very end, after having completed the course in our lineage, we then commit to 21 days of self-treatments. And I don't remember if this was said, but I always think it's a beautiful parallel between Mikao Usui's um, meditation and fasting that he committed
Mm,
to before
yeah.
receiving this gift. And so we walk out of Reiki level 1, new channels for Reiki. We give ourselves for 21 days, according to, like Linda mentioned, Hawaii Takata's hand placements. 21 days of self treatments. And once we complete the 21 days of self treatments, then we can choose when or if we would like to move forward with Reiki level 2. So, Reiki level 2, it's also referred to as the transformation. So, this is the shifting from establishing a relationship with Reiki, moving into cultivating it even further, deepening our relationship to it. And maybe some of you who practice Reiki yourselves or have heard about Reiki have heard about the symbols, the Reiki symbols. So, Reiki level 2, we are attuned to this level. And with that attunement, we receive 3 energetic symbols. And those are the first 3 Reiki symbols that can be used. I'm not going to go into too much detail because, this is material covered in the course itself, but it's important to understand that this is the point when we shift from the focus on the physical, like I said in level 1, to being able to send Reiki at a distance. Our attunement allows us now to apply the symbols in a way where we can send Reiki across time and space. And there are many ways that people commonly use these Reiki symbols, lots of different techniques and applications. And that's taught during our course instruction at level 2. And then after we complete Reiki level 2 course instruction, we again, as a new Reiki 2 practitioner, take a break from giving treatments to other people and spend 21 consecutive days giving ourselves self-treatments. And during that time, we're really establishing and uh, attuning, assisting the attunement even more. Like Linda said, with every attunement, we're opening ourselves up to receive even stronger energy, and we're becoming more potent channels for Reiki. And so this 21-day self-treatment in our lineage is a very important part of giving ourselves time and space to acclimate to our new level that we've reached. And then in our own practice with these 3 symbols, with others and with ourselves, we can gain access to our own unique ways of using and applying the symbols. Level 3, it is the level where we learn to teach Reiki level 1. So a very big element of learning Reiki 3 in our lineage and the attunement that we receive is being attuned so that we can give a Reiki 1 attunement to others, and so that we learn how to teach Reiki level 1 to others. Not everyone who learns Reiki level 3 ends up teaching Reiki, and that's important to
Mhm.
say. But there is an aspect of learning Reiki level 3, which feels very much to me as though I'm deepening my commitment to Reiki and saying, Reiki, I am really choosing to live a life where I am like an ambassador to Reiki in the way that I live and the way that I can talk about it and share my experiences. And that may be in the classroom with other students, but it may be in other ways, if someone is using Reiki in their own work or different practices or simply giving Reiki to others. And we all feel exactly when is the right time for us to, like I said before, step into a new level of learning. And we also feel very strongly what it is that we are called to do with Reiki for others. And um, yeah, that teaching level of level 3, we are dipping our toes into teaching because, again, we're receiving the attunement to attune others at Reiki level 1, no other levels. And so it's like the introduction to teaching. And then finally, Reiki level 4, this is when we receive an attunement and make a commitment to teach Reiki at all levels. So we receive an attunement, and with that attunement, we can attune students and we can teach students Reiki level 2, Reiki level 3, and Reiki level 4. And that would be in addition to what we learn in Reiki level 3. So at the end of course instruction for Reiki level 4, we've received an attunement and we've learned how to attune and teach Reiki levels 2, 3, and 4. And we officially can teach every single level in our lineage.
Megan already started talking a little bit about the 21 consecutive days of the self healing, and I wanted to add a few things to that. The first thing that is important for you to mention or to know is that Megan emphasized the importance of it, but let me clarify for you. It's important for several different reasons. The first reason is that it's an exploration. You are dedicating time and energy to yourself to explore this new sense because that's what Reiki will do. Reiki will open up a new kind of sense for you where if you have Reiki activated or maybe even not activated, and you move through your apartment and you hold your hands over different objects, you might start to sense that there is some kind of feedback. It's almost like a new layer of perception that's been unlocked for you or that is unlocking for you as you go along your Reiki journey. And having this time for yourself to explore this new sense without needing to cater to anyone else or to give to anyone else, but to yourself is really important. Because after all, when it comes to healing yourself or when it comes to healing others, you always need to start by healing and focusing on yourself because you cannot keep pouring from an empty cup. So that's one reason why it's really, really important to focus on yourself first. The second reason is that, as I mentioned a couple of times throughout this episode, when you are channeling this Reiki energy and it flows through you, everything that is not aligned with this universal loving energy comes to the surface to be examined. So these 21 days are days where you might experience some kind of physical symptoms, such as headache, or as you would experience when you're doing a cleanse or some kind of detox. You might also have certain issues in your life highlighted or certain challenges highlighted for you. And you might already start to get the feedback on or the intuitive guidance on how you can change or adjust. So it is a time when all of these things can come to the surface. I say can, doesn't mean that it needs to. So I don't think that you are being hit by a truck. Reiki will also guide the way in which these things arise for you. So, whatever comes to the surface for you is coming to the surface because number one, it's the right time for you to address it. And most importantly, number two, you are in a space and you are ready and capable of addressing it. You will not be hit with 100 different things to work on at once. So, it's important for you to know that this is also guided and you will never get more than you can chew. Um, as these things arise and you start working your way through that, it is, after all, an attunement because the more you give Reiki practices or Reiki sessions to yourself or to others, the more this energy flows through you. So you want to clear the channel. That's where this came from. And the time after the 21 days is a time of integration. You integrate what you learn, you integrate your practice, you integrate the things that arose, the things that need to be cleansed out, released, adjusted maybe some new programming that you need to do on yourself, on your mindset, and your habits, whatever it may be, any other kind of life changes are happening after these 21 days. So that's why I laughed earlier when I said that I went in thinking that I was going to do it fast, and then my entire life started to change as a result of being aligned on this path as the healer. Because clearly, this is where I'm meant to be, and this is the road that I'm meant to walk on. But my life in the outside was completely misaligned with that. So there was so much shifting and moving happening that I would not have been able to handle another Reiki level before I did, you know? So it's important to take your time and be easy with it. And if it takes 20 years, it takes 20 years. Who cares? Frankly speaking, who cares? There is no end point, there is no rush to it. When I learned the Reiki level 3, for example, I learned it only when my guides were basically telling me and giving me an attachment releasement session that was quite gnarly, and basically letting me know, hello, can you please learn the physical stuff so you can start teaching now? Because I was feeling like, oh, well, I don't know, it's not, I didn't even think it was time yet, or it wasn't time yet. I just didn't think about it whatsoever. And I was kind of floating around, and they're like, no, you need to like go on and do that now so that I can move forward. And Reiki becomes this wonderful guide, this wonderful friend on your journey as you move forward. It's important for you to know as well that when it comes to these levels, we are teaching them individually. Like Megan said, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there are other Reiki lineages, also other Usui Reiki lineages, where people are teaching these levels in a different way. Some do 1 and 2 together, 3 and 4 together. Yeah, usually that's what I do. I don't think I've seen 1, 2, 3 together. Um, and that's individual. Have a look at it. It's important to know for you that we are all led to the right teacher at the right time, and to the teacher that is right for us, and to the right lineage for us. Me personally, because of everything that is happening when it comes to the energy attunement, um, and what happens in your body, that's why I personally am really happy that I got guided to the lineage that I'm a part of, because I needed all of that time. It is a lot of knowledge to learn 1 and 2 together. First and foremost, I think it's a lot. It's a lot to learn, but it's also about the time to process. And separating all of these levels gives you the time to process. Because at the end of the day, like I said, you're not sprinting here. You can just take your time with it. So also when it comes to the energy attunements, in Megan's and mine Reiki lineage, it's important to know that we are taught that only one attunement is necessary at each level, and there are some other lineages that say more attunements are necessary, or the more attunements you receive, the stronger your connection to Reiki becomes. Me personally, I feel like, or I mean, like I said, for me personally, I feel like that's unnecessary, because it's like the cable got plugged in once and it's plugged in. And, like I cannot do more than plug it in. If I plug it in 20 times, then, like no more energy will flow through. But that's just my personal experience with that. You might feel different. You might experience it different. Your teacher might handle that different. It's perfectly fine, you know? Just so that you're aware of it. If you come across people who do several attunements that you don't that you know what to expect. Let me put it like that. So let's maybe talk about the course format in our lineage versus the other lineages.
Okay, so um, like Linda mentioned, other lineages might teach Reiki 1 and 2 together, for example, or Reiki level 3 and 4 together, and our lineage teaches them all separately. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the way that we can actually learn and the format of the course and how it's set up. At Reiki level 1, we have the option of attending a course in person. We can also learn Reiki remotely. Attunements can be given to a student without being physically together with the student. Just like we can send distance Reiki, we can also attune our students at a distance. So, um, if you feel called to learn Reiki from someone in a completely different country and they offer that, you can. You can attend a course which is a large group of people, and you can also attend a course where it's just you and another person, and keep it small. And I think it's important to lean into what Linda was saying about what feels right to you, what you feel called to in terms of which teacher, or doing it online or in person. For some reason, it felt very important for me to learn Reiki 1 in person. The minute I booked Reiki 2, I felt differently. So with Reiki Level 2, the same. You could attend a Reiki Level 2 course in person. You can also do a Reiki Level 2 course remotely online. And I felt very strongly, for some reason, that I wanted to learn Reiki Level 2 one-on-one. So I learned Reiki Level 2. I
Me
continued
too.
with my teacher, Ramona. I love her. And I did Reiki Level 2 remotely. Ramona was in Berlin and I was in Frankfurt. And I also just wanted to learn on my own. And it probably had a lot to do with what was coming up with me on the heels of that really intense incident in Iceland. And I, talked a lot with Ramona about specifics of ghost experiences and things like that, upon as well as other things. So, the beautiful thing about Reiki Level 1 and 2 is that you can also learn it in groups with other people and just feel out what feels right for you. And then when you reach Reiki Level 3, you're doing this one on one. This is
Yeah.
a course where it's very important that a student and a teacher are alone together. And it's, an extremely powerful and beautiful transformation to Reiki master. And so Reiki Level 3, of course, can be learned in person with a teacher. It can also be done remotely, and it's always done one on one.
Mhm.
And then in our lineage, we separate Reiki levels 3 and 4. So
Yeah.
if you choose to continue with Reiki Level 4, if you choose to be a teacher of levels 2, 3, and 4, and you want to, go to the very end, then again, you'll be learning this one-on-one
Yeah.
with, the teacher who feels right for you, and very similar to Reiki Level 3. It's important that that's done alone.
Mm.
Okay. Um, Linda, do you want to tell us a little bit about remote courses? I think
Sure.
for some people, this whole remote concept and distance concept is just hard to wrap their
Yeah.
heads around.
So if you want to learn Reiki remotely, there are courses that you can book online where people have pre-recorded their material. Or what I'm doing is I am meeting up with a group in real time, and we sit in a video call together. I have a small group of people, a maximum of 8 for level 1 and maximum of 6 for level 2. And we come together and we sit down and we do the teaching and learning the way that you do with any other thing. When it comes to the attunements, I think that's the most mind-boggling part is how to receive the Reiki attunement. And there is a ritual that I need to set up from my end, particular Reiki symbols that I need to draw, and other rituals that are in place that allow me to send the Reiki energy or the Reiki attunement to you right in this moment, right there, right now. And this is done individually. So I'm not sending a Reiki attunement to the entire group and then I'm done. There's a ritual where always one person needs to sit up on a chair, and I stand behind them, and I actually have a chair in my studio right here that I only use for attunements. Then I will place it out, and the chair in my physical space it looks empty, but because of the energy connection you are sitting right there. And then I do what I need to do. There is the individual attunement. The student lays down again, and then I call up the next one. If it's in person or remotely, I do the same thing. Of course, I go through the group, and then afterwards I give them the entire group a little bit more Reiki, and then that's the end of the course. So that is done, like I said, individually. And I think it also needs to be individually because I'm literally working with the body of the student, whether in person or remotely. And I am connecting also their hands to that kind of energy line. It's like I said, the cable is laid in that attunement. So, if you are curious about learning Usui Reiki, either from Megan and I, we will leave our information down below. And if you're curious about our Reiki teacher as well, of course, Romana, we're also going to leave her details down below. If you're Berlin and you're looking for an in-person course, can highly recommend her. It's
Mm,
incredible, like really, really good.
yep.
And where does that leave us? That leaves us with next week's episode, where we are sharing more of the behind the scenes of the personal Reiki journey that Megan and I were on. We already started teasing it a bit, that it started to move into feeling spirits and entities around and learning what to do with them. And then the episode after that is going to be focusing, or is focused on um, the thing that we developed, the attachment releasement. Like, how does it work? What does it do? What can we do with it? How much have we explored it yet? Because again, like I said, we will be teaching that. At the moment, the manual doesn't exist yet, but we are starting to channel it. So we will teach this. I'm also actually, I have a newsletter for that. If you're curious about learning that and you want to stay in the loop without needing to be on social media at all times and receive a little letter when it's time or when we have more to share, I'm going to leave that down below for you as well, so you can sign up for it, and we will let you know when we have news connected to that.
I
All
also
right.
wanted to jump in and say that our podcast has reached a point where we are so interested to hear from all of you. And we want to thank all of you for the beautiful comments and support that you've been giving since we kicked this off. We also have an email address. So, anyone who's interested in reaching out with the specific questions, sharing stories about things that come up for them as they're
Mhm.
watching the episodes or listening to us, um, anything like that, Linda and I are really interested in putting together episodes every once in a while where we share from our community
Yeah.
and talk through some things that we receive, maybe answer questions or just share others' experiences. So we'll drop our email address below. It's the psychicsages at gmail.com. You can send us an email at any
Mm.
point, and when we've collected enough, we'll put an episode together
Yeah.
and push forward with our community building, which we're really excited to do. Really thanks to all of you for being a part of this with us.
Because at the end of the day, like, we share two experiences, but there's such a broad variety of
Yeah.
experiences, and I
Yeah.
love hearing about it as well. Okay, so thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We hope you got what you needed out of this episode. Even if you just listened to a portion, maybe you just wanted to learn how the courses are structured, and everything else you're like, it's fine, I'm good, or the other way around. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and we hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Bye.